Welcome, everyone, to TESL Ontario's Career Conversations, Insights from Industry Leaders. My name is Diane Ramanathan, and I'm your moderator for today. I'm excited to facilitate this discussion between you and our incredible panel of hiring managers. Our goal today is to provide you with practical insider advice for your career journey in the field of English language training. We'll explore burning questions like, what skills and qualifications do employers value? What strategies help in securing and retaining roles? And what roles are available in this field? We'll begin with some predetermined questions to guide our conversation, and then at the end, open up to live audience questions towards the end. There's also a bonus code on the last slide that you can use for prizes, I think. Okay.
All right.
So let's meet our panelists. Joining us today is Sheila Nicholas from the Link ESL sector, bringing extensive experience in the management of language instruction programs. Marianne Kayed, also from the Link ESL sector, with a background in managing ESL education programs, and James Papple, representing the university sector, with deep insights into academic language support roles. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing and we'll have our panel discussion. Okay. First question. So let's begin with some introductory questions to get to know our panelists. Could each of you briefly describe your own career journey? What steps did you take to reach your current position in administration or management? And just to give you an idea, we have 4.5, 5 minutes for each question. So that gives you about like a minute and a half each. Who would like to start? Marianne.
I will start first. Anyway, thanks, Diane. Yeah, my background is interesting. I've been in ESL and adult education most of my career. I've had a few episodes where I went and worked in other sectors, which I found for me helpful, but also a sign at different times in my career how much ESL work was available. So sometimes it was a combination of reasons why I left and came back. But certainly I started off doing practical work and then went back into the TESL program at Brock, the initial group that started up there. After that, I worked for the Center for Canadian Language Benchmarks for over a decade and learned a lot about project management, though I had done a little bit of that before that. And certainly that helped with the job when I applied for the job at the school board in terms of managing budgets and working with some of the same funding groups and that kind of thing. So it's been an interesting ride and certainly a great area to be in.
Okay, I'll go next. My pathway into adult ESL was quite accidental. I was never expecting to spend my entire career here. In fact, I'm trained as a political scientist. I got my PhD, and while I was looking for a job, I started volunteering in adult ESL, and I loved it. And I just continued. I took additional training with the University of Saskatchewan, began teaching at the Upper Grand District School Board. And after a few years, I got the opportunity to cover the management position in July and August in the summer months because the program administrator was taking an extended holiday. And that turned into an annual event. And so I built up my skills there. And once she retired, I applied for the position and I got it. And then I continued using volunteer experience to build my management skills. I volunteered with TESL Ontario on the Standards Committee. I became the chair of the Standards Committee and on and on and on, and had many opportunities with TESL Ontario as well as the Centre for Canadian Language Benchmarks. So the interesting thing about adult ESL is that you build your skills in a variety of ways, and there until recently wasn't anything that you could study to become qualified. So it all came through experience and opportunity. Jim?
Thank you. And like my other panelists, I think I also started with a different career path in mind. But originally, actually, I was going to work in biology, and so again, meeting with students, especially the international students, and learning about where they were from, the foods, the cultural items, it just became much more attractive to me. And I hadn't traveled very much as a young person, and so it was sort of expanding my mind, about what was possible. And so I was lucky enough, I think, as well, to have the good fortune of timing. When I started in '99, things were booming, and there was lots of positions open, and so it was possible for me to get an early management position in the early 2000s. And from there, I kind of branched out and tried a number of different things. Also volunteered with TESL Ontario, which I think did amazing things for me and really kind of opened my eyes to what was out there. And I think that really helped with my career as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our next question. Jumping into the current job market landscape and its challenges, what's going on in the job market for ESL educators, and how can candidates navigate its challenges? Who'd like to start?
Oh, I'll start. I'll try it. And I'll rely on Marianne and Jim to fill in the gaps. We're on a cusp of a change. I'm sure everyone's heard about the changes to the immigration quotas for the upcoming years, which is a bit of a change from the trajectory that we were on. So it's in flux right now. Setting that aside, I do think that there are lots of jobs available out there. Everyone I know is looking for supply instructors, and that is often the best way to get your foot into the door of an organization and then build your experience and expertise to position yourself to be hired into a permanent position. The adult ESL instructional world is always in flux, so I don't want my opening remark to be interpreted as in any way discouraging. It just is the reality that we are very much tied to the social, political, and economic realities of Canada. As you know, we receive refugees, our numbers go up, government changes quotas, they go down. So that's just part of the field. So don't be discouraged by that.
Well, maybe I'll piggyback off that too, because I think there is a lot of negative out there at the moment. But we have to think back. It wasn't that long ago that we all proved our resilience in getting through the pandemic. And when there is a downturn or a change or we're in flux, that means that there's new opportunities out there as well. And so for those who are flexible or creative or just resilient, I think there's lots of opportunities out there, whether it's staying here or going overseas. I think again, something like TESL Ontario accreditation, which is sort of the highest standard in the land, I think helps, because it's one of those things that sort of sets you apart, from others and perhaps other provinces and so forth. And then being open to trying new things and combining it. I think one of the things that we're seeing now is so many TESL Ontario people, getting experience in instructional design, or, combining that with some sort of specialization, right? And then building a niche for yourself. And so I think there's lots of opportunities still out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you in terms of what you've mentioned. Certainly the niche areas are important, and I think that's where people can use whatever jobs they are getting. And certainly I've got staff that work maybe at two different organizations, so that gives them two different ins, if you will, into an organization, but also an opportunity in each place to leave their mark and to learn how to work with different organizations, right? Because not every organization is the same, just like every school is not the same. But certainly it's an opportunity. I think it is cyclical in terms of what we often see with ESL. And I think from my perspective, oftentimes, yeah, the casual list is our way into our board most often, in terms of us getting to know people and them getting to know us and deciding if it's a good fit. And certainly the permanent jobs perhaps are a little bit harder to get or not as often available. Again, often due to the funding. But certainly they are there and they do come around, and certainly staff are encouraged to, work with us, and we're always really grateful for the staff who stay with us.
Marianne, you're a little tinny. Could you move yourself a little closer
Okay,
to your laptop?
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So question number 3, how has the demand for ESL teaching roles evolved in recent years, and how competitive is the job market now? I think you mentioned a lot of everyone's looking for a supply teacher. I see that on Tutela as well on the job board. It's just everybody's looking. So if you could, that's good news for people in the room. Who would like to start?
One of the things that's changed is the technology, certainly. I think that came through on the pandemic, during the pandemic, the need for everybody to be able to flip and to adjust and change their mode of delivery at different times. The AI stuff is certainly changing things, and our board is diving in full force and encouraging the teachers to be using it in different ways, and the office staff and everybody else. I think the other piece is there is a lot demanded of people who come in, especially if you're new in the area, and you have to know your CLB, you have to know your PBLA or get trained on PBLA. There's a whole range of things that we want all the employees to have and to be able to use in their teaching. And so it's often challenging trying to be able to do it all and to master everything.
I would suggest one of the things that might define our field a little bit more than many other fields is that often TESL is chosen as a second or third career. So very often people are entering the workforce in their 50s or later. And I know in many organizations that the average age of employees is well over 50. So that's great because those employees bring a lot of different experiences into the field, which just enriches our programming. But it also means that there is turnover in the field, that people often, because they enter the field later in life, that they stay for 10 or 12 years and then retire. So there's always those opportunities. I don't think that the job market is any more competitive now than it was 10 years ago and 5 years ago. And as Jim mentioned, if you have an OCELT, that will open so many doors for you. I'll post a position and get 80 applicants, and I'm lucky if I get 4 that are TESL Ontario accredited.
I think too, as Marianne was saying about technology, obviously that's ever evolving and changing. But one of the things that separates those who simply learn how to use the technology, and we all get sort of sucked into the bells and whistles of something new, but the real skill is educators who know how to use it to teach, and that's not something that everybody gets right away. And I think that's something that is sort of a way to carve a niche for yourself as well. I think the other thing that needs to be kind of noted, it maybe isn't an evolution, because I think we've always done this quite a lot, but now I think that with the political climate and everything else, that students are much more maybe sensitive to financial pressures, family pressures, stressors of all sorts. And so having those soft skills of being able to be a really excellent listener, to be compassionate, I think is even more important now at this time, because there is so much going on in students' lives as well as everyone else's.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to question number 4. Let's discuss the realities of workplace challenges and job stability for ESL teachers. What are some of the most common challenges ESL teachers face in their workplaces, and how stable are these jobs?
Well, I guess I will start then. It is a challenge to find, I think, full-time permanent work, and it does take a little bit of opportunity as well as a little bit of luck. Being in the right place at the right time and being noticed at the right place in the right time. But there are things that you can do to help yourself, and I think either trying to target expanding your breadth of knowledge around a certain area, or your depth of teaching, trying to either be broad in what you do or really, really good at something specific, I think gives you an opportunity that, again, maybe helps you stand out, whether it's, maybe you do really well in business English, or medical English because, you're coming in from a different background, or, all those things sort of open up other opportunities. And I think being open to trying new things is a way that can also help you in the future.
Mhm. I would say with regard to stability that the jobs are no more or less stable than any other sector of the economy. It is always dependent upon public funding for the most part. So there may be some ups and downs on that, but as long as I have been in the field, it has always been a feeling that it's unstable, precarious work, and I haven't found that to be the case. In fact, it's been quite stable over the long run.
I would think so too. I have teachers who have been with me over 30 years. Well, and I haven't even been there that long. So, they predate me by a couple of decades in the program. So there is opportunity, I think, in different organizations to have long-term careers. Now, some of them may be part-time, but again, for some people that's fine, right? Because then they can work and do other things or raise their families or incorporate other things into their lives. And some people it's full-time. So it varies, but certainly I think one of the things that helps is the currency, staying current with all the trends and the different things that we're being asked to teach and do and demonstrate. And I think one of the other things that I think really can help is if somebody, in terms of their own professional development, volunteers to do workshops and participates in things like even the TESL conference. I've seen a little bit of a change in recent years with people, at least in my organization, being a little bit more hesitant to put in proposals and to take that risk. So I would encourage people to take a risk and present it, because often there are many, many good teaching ideas that people have that can be shared, and we are all better for it when we see those things.
Oh, my mute is sticky. Okay, I'm back. Thank you for those insights. So next, let's move to some practical questions on hiring and applications. Regarding resumes and cover letters, what stands out to you the most and increases a candidate's chance of getting an interview?
Having an OCELT, that's the way to open the door. Yeah.
I also look for the resume itself. I look at, does it have a spelling mistake or a couple, because that says something. How much detail is in it? Is it a nice 1 page, 2 page, or is it 35 pages? I think, again, people should be able to capture the skills, and it should be related to the job that they're applying for. Don't send me your generic CV if you've got one that you use for engineering and one that you use for teaching. Send me the one for teaching. That's the one I want to see.
And I would say, maybe piggybacking off of that, just sort of general professionalism with the way that you write. Try to be succinct and get to the point. Try to be measurable and show that you've made an impact in what you've done. Again, I would try to tailor the message so that, you know, if you've gone and looked at the employer and done a little bit of research, throw that into your cover letter so that they know that you've taken it seriously. And then the other thing is to try to follow up. You know, if you sent something in and didn't get any messages back, you know, wait a little while and then do it again. You know, and don't give up.
All good points. I think I would summarize as to, you know, do the same things that we teach our students to do. Tailor the resume for the job, proofread it, get somebody else to proofread it, follow up, all those kinds of things, right? They apply to us as well. Okay, next question. During the actual interview, what qualities stand out in a candidate? Are there things that candidates should avoid?
Well, I think one thing that always comes through and looks good is being enthusiastic. You know, we want to see that you're passionate about what you've decided to do for a career, right? And so show your passion for teaching, right? Try to stay positive. I would avoid the negative, you know, even if you've had bad experiences in something in the past, maybe don't lead with that or try to look at what the positive of that experience was rather than the negative. And you know, again, interviews are often like this session, you know, where there's sort of a set time. You know, be succinct. Try to keep in mind the other people's time and get in with something strong and impactful, and let your personality show.
Mhm.
I would also agree with you. Being passionate about teaching is very important. I also think illustrating how you feel compassionate towards these learners, that you understand as adult newcomers face so many challenges. I like to hear in an interview that someone can put themselves in the shoes of our newcomers, so they understand their challenges that they bring to the classroom, that they have their worries and their struggles. I want someone to know that that is going to be part of their instructional experience. I look for someone who's reflective. Are they going to be somebody who is going to learn from their mistakes? Because, you know, any new instructor will make lots of mistakes, right? So is it someone who is resilient? You know, have a lesson plan that doesn't go well. Can you pick yourself up, reflect on what went wrong, learn, and then tomorrow go back into that classroom and take what you learned and put it into practice? Being resilient is so important in our field because our classrooms have people who have had a lot of challenges, and sometimes they share that, and it is impactful on us as instructors. I hope that someone would have the resilience and the perspective to hear that, listen to it, and then still move forward.
Yeah, I agree with the points you've made. You know, Jim and Sheila. I think in addition, I'm looking for authenticity. You know,
Mm.
again, I'm looking also for skill with CLB. You know, that's kind of always kind of my special thing I like to look at. And again, yeah, that ability to relate to the learners and relate to other teachers. You know, how do they display good interpersonal skills, and are they able to, if you give them a scenario question, are they able to actually give an example if that's what you're asking for that question, that's real, you know, rather than talking around it. I think, but yeah, I think all those things, but certainly hard to rank any of them, but certainly they're all important and always interesting. And I think the story, right? Each person has a different story of how they got into teaching. I think that's always really interesting too, to find out what else we could give them or consider giving them in future if there's a specialty class or things like that.
Thank you. Next question. is about soft skills. And I think you've touched a little bit on that already, but if you could elaborate on what soft skills you consider most important when hiring new teachers. Who'd like to go first?
I think teamwork is important. I'll
Mhm.
start. I think, certainly as teachers, we don't work alone. We tend to work with our colleagues and our teams fairly closely, with our supervisors, as well as with the students. So somebody who is able to, work as a team, but also be independent and work independently on things. I think, you want that balance between the two, and knowing when to do both.
Mhm.
I'll stop. Maybe the others have other ones that they want to add.
I was going to add to be a problem solver. I mean,
Yes.
Problems arise in interpersonal relationships. Problems arise when what you're doing in the classroom doesn't seem to be having an impact on a particular learner, and you've got to be curious about what's the issue, what's the obstacle, what's the barrier, and then how do I figure out how to get past that? Can I do it on my own? Do I connect with my colleagues who have had that level or that learner or similar experience? Do I connect with upper administration to figure out how they can help? Like, where do we go from here? And that sensitivity to the learner, which makes you want to make it the best possible learning experience for them, is really important.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I was thinking, adaptability, obviously being culturally sensitive, empathetic, but, to maybe go on to Sheila's point a little bit, being open to things, not having sort of a rigid mindset. Even though sometimes our classes are the same term after term, they're never really the same. Every time a new group of students come in, it's a new group, and so that ability to problem solve is really, really important, and to go through the steps of trying to build rapport and making an inclusive or even supportive learning environment is something that takes a real art and skill, and I think you have to be open to that, and flexible enough to take some risks too.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Next question. Is there one quality that you look for most when hiring educators? I think Sheila mentioned the OCELT. Is there anything else that stands out, or is there anything else that automatically disqualifies somebody?
Well, because as a school board, and being funded by the Ontario government, we are required to hire OCELTs. So that puts some limitations on who I can consider hiring, but that doesn't mean it's exclusive. So someone with a history of teaching adult learners, adult ESL learners, and other educational qualifications could be considered on a case-by-case basis to a certain extent.
Yeah, in some cases, when I've received CVs that came in from people who don't have their TESL, we would refer them back to the PLAR program and say, may wish to inquire and pursue that. And many, many times they do, which is great, because then I can hire them, right? Any qualities? I'm trying to think what else. I think innovation, again, I'm looking often for innovation in terms of, that ability to adapt, like you mentioned in the last question, but also innovation where maybe they've come up with something really, really neat in their classrooms, or in their, how they develop their materials, or ideas for new courses even. Again, we're often looking for that, because what can we offer learners that fits with what they want, right? And offer.
And I will say, just again on the same sort of thing, the first thing that came to mind was sort of creativity, but I think that innovation that you were talking about, it is really important, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in terms of curriculum that you've built in the classroom. Like even something, joining a TESL Ontario committee, or, starting something on your own and giving it a try, I think all shows that you have these capacity again for being, open and trying something new, and being able to bring in different perspectives.
Mhm.
Thank you. I see we have a hand raised. Just keep your questions to the end, or you can post them in the Q&A. And we'll have, 20, 25 minutes for questions. All right, next question. Let's talk about the future. As we look to the future of ESL education, I'd like to ask about trends and how folks can prepare for the future. We know AI and Avenue and tech skills are always a big part of that. What future trends do you foresee in the ESL job market, and how can teachers best prepare for these changes?
Well, if we continue to bring in refugees, I think that developing literacy skills are really important. We sometimes think of literacy learners as the very beginning learners in a foundational literacy class, but the need to continue to develop your knowledge about teaching literacy learners continues for many levels, especially often it's in a multi-level class. So being better prepared to understand the skills, the strategies that you need to teach literacy learners, I think is one area where I would recommend you to pursue skill development.
I agree. I think also, I think the technology will also inform some of how we approach teaching in future. And I think, we're already seeing this in some classrooms where they're using multi-languaging and translanguaging and using tools that are out there that students may have on their phone to help, again, if you have a very low level CLB class, that has very basic English, CLB1 or literacy. Again, if they have their phones, they can all be talking their different language, but again, understand each other and work on a joint assignment. So again, the technology allows us to do certain things that we weren't able to do before. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that impacts teaching and what people do with it. But again, it's an opportunity, right? So it's something new that we have to kind of get our heads around, but it's also an opportunity to try different things and stretch ourselves a little bit.
I agree. It's hard to not see technology as a trend going forward, especially with AI. I was just thinking like plurilingualism and translingualism. If I could do it over again, I would definitely put some more focus there. I would love to know more about how to incorporate that into my teaching practice. But, I think maybe one thing to try to offset these trends is to try to build strong networks with others, because you can't know everything yourself. As I was saying, like there's lots of things that I certainly don't know, but I know that there are people out there who do. And so it's easy to make connections. I follow people like John Allen, who of course is really techno savvy and writes, of course, for the TESL Ontario blog and contact quite frequently and lots of webinars. But, there's lots of free sources of information out there, whether it's the Contact Journal here or BC Teal. And you can learn a lot from those people and reach out to them because they're wanting to share their ideas, right? They wouldn't have done these sorts of conferences or put words to paper if they didn't want someone to reach out to them. So build that network. And I think if you have that, you'll be able to ride the wave of trends a little bit more easily.
But I think it ties into that idea of lifelong learning too, right? That we want people who don't just get into a job and then kind of stop. We want them to continue to embrace what's happening and try it and experiment and make it their own so that, at whatever level they're comfortable working at. But to really, try things that, again, benefit the learners in the class that we have and help them do their jobs more efficiently, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a very important mindset, isn't it? As you want everyone in your organization to pull in the same direction, and that means that when we are facing changes, we may be told by our employers, I would say our funders, that we have to do something, and you hope that everyone that you hire has a mindset of, this is what works now for in this context under these conditions, whatever, and a year from now that might not be the same. So being adaptable and willing to consider doing things in different ways is really important. And as we have technology moving in, that's going to be propelling us perhaps faster to make changes. So having again, a curiosity about what's possible, what's new, and being willing to experiment, incorporate new things into your teaching is important.
Thank you. And the last question before we open it up to the Q&A. I see there's already a couple of questions on the Q&A. Lastly, what advice would you give to new graduates aiming to enter the field of language training today? And I did put the OCELT link in the chat for everyone if you don't already have that certification and you're looking to work with newcomers.
What future trends?
I think there's so many options open to people in ESL, FSL language training, and language, applied linguistics. I think, whether people want to go into the academic stream, if they want to work with newcomers, if they want to work at the elementary or high school level, there's different routes people can move into. Certainly there's research roles, there's resource development. There's lots of opportunities depending what people like doing and what their skill sets are and the experiences that they bring to it. So I think it would be really, I would encourage people to try things. And you don't know, and again, those TESL associations in the community, each city has one, are really, really helpful. Like I know when I first started, I was helping with a newsletter and doing this and that. And, I really enjoyed every 2 months, the group of 10 people would get together and we would share ideas and share experiences. And again, that's just one way to interact locally. But again, as Jim mentioned, there's other places. Like you can go to a conference in another province. Pretty well every province has another TESL association or has a conference. And so those are great learning opportunities there. Or you can connect with somebody in Alberta and find out what kind of materials they're working on. And it's very exciting. Like, again, we always can learn. Other people might be doing stuff, that's really neat that we can adapt or use as well. So there's lots of opportunity nationally, internationally, provincially, interprovincially.
I think AI is going to be might be a challenge to the field in that it will become so sophisticated that it will be able to interact. It's already doing this, interact with the learner and provide a conversational partner in some cases. So I think about what we bring as instructors to the classroom that AI cannot. And we bring empathy, we bring a sense of community. We can build relationships with our learners, and that will be important as to integrate newcomers into our communities. I mean, that in the whole purpose of LINC and ESL is to help people settle successfully. And I think instructors play a really important role in bridging that and helping learners figure out how to feel comfortable in their new country. And AI will never, ever replace that. So I do think that we bring our humanity, and that's the most important thing. And that trend, that's not a trend, that will always be there. So just remember how important it is to be a community builder as well as an instructor.
And I guess I would say, when you're trying to break into something, especially something that's new for you, it can be a frustrating experience. There's lots of rejection. And so it's important to stay positive. And I know for myself at different points when I've applied for work, it isn't the first application or even the first dozen applications, but it's important to, I think, at least in my own experience, to try to dream or see yourself in that role or working in that place, because I think if you can get yourself into that headspace, sort of like they say athletes, they kind of envision before they go and do the activity, and then they're more relaxed and sort of muscle memory. I think if you can kind of think about yourself in the job and what you're going to do there, you're going to be more relaxed in the job interview. You're going to have maybe more fulsome answers because you've thought about it already, and all of that's going to build your confidence while you're, the practical part of actually sitting in the interview, and I think that will really help. And so it's easy to get despondent sometimes when you've got the seventh or eighth rejection, but it will come and you will find something.
Good pep talk.
I have to speak to Marianne's point. When I moved to Ottawa and got my TESL Ontario OCELT certification, I joined the TESL Ottawa board as a member at large. And it gave me this gave me access to this cross section of people working in the field across Ottawa in all different kinds of ways in organizations I'd never heard of because I didn't do my training in Ottawa, right? And I'm not from Ottawa. So I think, as a plug to those TESL Ontario affiliates, if you are in Ontario, definitely you can join as a member at large. They'll be happy to have you. And you really get to make these connections to all sorts of people. I'm still connected to those people today. So that is, all the points are good, but that certainly was something that helped me out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's open it up to the Q&A. Okay, so here are some questions. So I'll just read out the questions, and then whoever feels that they are able to answer it, we can just go from there. It seems there is lots of supply work being posted, but few full-time positions. How many hours can a person typically get within a school board? My concern is financial, spending more than earning to move close to employment and not knowing how long it will be before a permanent position opens up. I think Sheila and Marianne, you're both with school boards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a difficult question to answer. It's one I often get asked when I hire a new supply instructor. And we, as an employer, I do try to balance the number of supply instructors I need with making sure or hoping, because I can't make sure, but hoping that they will have enough work that they continue to be interested. But it is a balancing act that is difficult. So I'm never able to answer that questions for certain. And full-time employment, at least for my board, there's only a few instructors that have full-time employment. It is the nature of adult ESL that many of our learners work, so they're coming to school part-time, whether in the morning is our largest program, and I think that's probably the case for you too, Marianne. And so it is possible to have more than one position, so you can build up towards full-time, but to walk into a full-time position is very rare.
I would agree. I think my experience at the school board and also my experience years ago in the college system was that there are lots of contract jobs or lots of casual jobs depending on what's happening, but very, very far fewer. I wouldn't say many, but far fewer permanent positions posted. we're also working in unionized environments in many cases. So often we are restricted by how many hours somebody can work on an assignment by our union agreement. So in my school board, we have two unions in ESL. One is a full-time, one is a part-time. The part-time can work up to 23 hours. The full-time are 30 and 24 and above. So again, the part-time people also, though, have the advantage that they can also do supply work. So sometimes they'll pick up, if they have a morning class, we find a, teacher, John is going to be off in the afternoon. We ask Mary, are you able to teach John's class this afternoon? They say yes. Okay, they're right there. They go right into the class, after the lunch. So that makes it easier. But in terms of being able to guarantee somebody casual hours, it's really hard because we don't know. We don't know who's going to be sick that year. We don't know, we just don't know. So it varies. But I would, if I can just add a tip, I would just say, don't be afraid to follow up with the schools that you're on the supply list for, and just let them know when you are available. Because sometimes too, when people have changed their availability or gone off for a semester to work somewhere else, we don't know if you're coming back or if we can call you or not. So, it's good to kind of keep that updated each year as well.
Okay, let's go to our next question. This is a very useful panel, so thank you for that. My question is about transitioning from a teaching position to administrative positions. It's been mentioned earlier that volunteering at various TESL chapters could be of help, but there is always someone else with more experience competing for that same position. Your further elaboration would be highly appreciated. Thank you.
Well, organizations like the different TESL chapters would always need more help, more volunteers. And so if you can't get into an elected position, you may want to volunteer first. I do think that that's a great way. I started in TESL Niagara myself, and I learned a lot about other people and about the process. And so I do think that's a really good way of building up some leadership skills and developing mentors with others. But if you can't get in right away, even just volunteering a little bit and making yourself known to those that are working in the board that you're interested, I think they would find you something. And if not, there's lots of other things that you can volunteer for as well that would be equally good.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of timing and a unionized environment, and everybody is different. So management at our board is outside of the unionized environment. So it's not necessarily the case that you would be limited by seniority when you applied for a management position. So it's gaining those leadership skills, and there's lots of ways to do that, and demonstrating those leadership skills on a day-by-day basis. And you can do that in different ways, right? There's a problem that needs to be solved among the staff, and you demonstrate your ability to problem solve and work through various scenarios, and be willing to work with management to demonstrate that you are perhaps taking the bigger organization into perspective, or the organization's goals into consideration as you try to navigate a solution. Being noticed, like Jim said, is really important. So taking an opportunity to demonstrate your skills is probably one way you could move up in an organization.
Yeah, and when positions come up in management, I think, when we can, we like to hire internally if we do have staff that have the right skills. But again, it always goes through a fair competition process. There's always a formal posting, and HR is usually involved in that. So, I think the other thing somebody can do if they're interested in that kind of work down the road would be to start preparing. Like, do you know a little bit about finances and how to manage a budget and how to work a spreadsheet and read a spreadsheet? And that may be picked up by maybe joining, a board somewhere, a different, like not a school board, but like a not-for-profit board, You know, maybe you join the the Lions Club or something, and you offer to be the treasurer. You know, just by being there, you'll be reading statements and working with somebody in finance probably. So, like I said, there's opportunities to pick that up in different ways, or you can take courses. Like there's nothing wrong with going, and again, continuing that lifelong learning outside of teaching. There's other things that people have in terms of their skill sets that often, you don't want to just forget other things that you might be interested in or good at, And so when somebody is being hired, I'm sure whoever makes those decisions is looking at the full package in terms of what are they looking for in terms of the soft skills, the technical, financial skills, the ability to read contracts or to draft proposals. That's also important in some jobs. Do you have that vision that you can think 5 years down the road? What is your link contract going to look like 5 years from now, and try and estimate what that may cost and how much you'll be able to deliver. So like I said, it's kind of I don't think there's any set rules, but I think certainly there's opportunities for people depending on how motivated you are and how interested you are.
Just a quick question. For a full-time employment, how many hours are typically, or how many teaching hours is that? Is that 25 teaching hours? What is that at your different
Oh,
organizations?
it depends. In my organization, it's 26 hours and 40 minutes a week.
Wow. In our program, it's 30 hours for full-time, and part-time can do a maximum of 23, though some do less.
Jim?
It varies because like the college is a unionized environment, and so there's part-time hours, which is generally less than 9, and then anything above 9 would be considered either partial load or full-time. So maximum would be about 15 hours of teaching a week.
Okay. Another question. How can a new instructor to an organization not new to teaching tactfully bring change to the teaching team when the older instructors are not open to doing things differently?
Yeah, that can be difficult. I think champions can come in many forms, right? And age is not necessarily indicative of wisdom, right? And so, but but you do want to try to find out why they are maybe resistant, right? And so I think being a good listener before you try to move forward with an action, what is it? Is there some fear, or maybe just having the opportunity to work alongside them, might help shift those things. But yeah, I think being open to learning why they are reticent to that change.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. Change is very difficult, and if you are a champion of change, I guess one thing you have to do is to demonstrate the benefits of that, and as Jim said, listen to people's concerns about change and acknowledge it and try to sort that out. But yeah, change is one of those. All of us have different thresholds for change, and for some it's a lower threshold than others.
And I suppose the other piece would be, is there support for making the change, and supports in place to help the people that are a little bit more resistant to trying new things? Are there opportunities to build in little pieces of a new process or a new method of doing something that doesn't scare them off too much, or make them feel that it's too much. I think the pandemic, one of the things we saw with the pandemic that was so remarkable was that people who had refused to go into a computer to even look at their pay stub because of the pandemic. I had teachers who were teaching 30 years and close to retirement who really, really embraced it. And it was a big surprise. And then I think they surprised themselves because they got good at it. They actually had really good retention in their classes, kept all their students, they made their classes interesting. So like I said, sometimes, when you're pushed a little bit, you are able to adapt in many cases. And often we surprise ourselves how well people do with it.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a young educator that has just entered the early stages of their career and looking for work?
Well, I'll answer that. I had someone apply to a program who had just graduated and just got their OCELT, and their resume was very brief, to the point. But my advice to them was start building your resume. So that person had applied for a permanent position, and I said, start with supply and build build into your resume how you have taught different levels, and demonstrate that you have the skills and experience to then take on a longer assignment. There's free opportunities on this Center for Canadian Language Benchmarks for webinars, TESL Ontario. Do that professional development, add it to your resume, demonstrate that you're willing to learn and to grow. So just build your resume. It's TESL, graduating from TESL training is just the very beginning of your career, and you have lots to learn.
I would agree. I think take any opportunity you can to work with, if you want to work with newcomers, and find ways to work with newcomers, whether it's tutoring, whether it's a conversation group, as a volunteer. Again, it may not help pay the bills, but at least you'll be picking up experience, and you can put that on your resume and add to it. Again, hopefully finding something where you are being paid to work, and you do have some ability to learn from other people. I think the other really good experience I was given when I first started was I was able to observe probably 20 different teachers and see what they did at different levels. And to me, that stuck with me in terms of certain techniques and tips that people did. And it was just fabulous. I just felt so much better when it came to be my turn then to go into the classroom, that I felt like I had a little bit more in my toolbox to start with. And certainly it was really, 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 really beneficial. So if you get an opportunity to do something like that, try it.
And I guess I would say, if you don't have work currently, to take that as sort of your job, get a big pot of coffee going every morning, build a system in, check all of the college and university web pages and all of the other job boards and things that you think would be a good fit, and make that kind of a routine part of your morning or something. Just go through to see what's new and what's out there, and just keep applying, and keep trying, even if it's not a paid thing. Just keep your ear to the ground and keep looking, right? That's your job at the moment.
Yeah.
The cost of living is quite high in some areas. I do wonder how people can afford to live. In your experience, is a 20-hour job in TESL sufficient to sustain someone in the GTA?
I don't live in the GTA. I live in Guelph, and it's pretty expensive. And, it just depends on your circumstances, I guess. That's a difficult question to answer.
I think the other thing we know is every organization pays different rates often, so it's not one size fits all.
I mean, as someone who commutes into the GTA, I would say, the GTA is expensive regardless of what field you're in, or housing. Of course, it's infamous, right? So that's why I think so many do commute, either into Toronto or from Toronto out, because there's lots of work in the surrounding areas, whether it's Guelph or Brantford or Hamilton or Burlington. There's lots of opportunities, or Barrie, that are within driving or traveling range that may pay better if you're willing to travel a little bit.
And there's other strategies. I mean, it may be that for a while you have to take a second job to while you build your ESL career. That's another reality, which will, once you get a schedule, you're available to work, that gets sorted out, whether it's supply work or a temporary position or whatever, and you continue to build your skills. no matter what job that you have, as you look for that ESL position that you want.
So this next question is for the school boards and a little bit about the funding and the difference between ESL and LINK. So who funds ESL? Is it the ministry, that really long name, Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Trade, Skills? Who funds LINK? Could you clarify a little bit those different streams for us?
Okay, well, I'll do the provincial and you can do the federal.
Okay.
So the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, which seems to have a name change every couple of years, is the Ontario ministry that funds adult non-credit ESL. And yes, the funding formula that they have for adult ESL are different. They're determined annually. We are given an amount per year that we must work within. And so that becomes one of the realities of running an adult ESL program, is that you don't go through an application process. You are given a grant and you live within that grant for the year.
And the other funder that we have in most of the programs would be the LINK funding, and that's funded by Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, IRCC. It is usually in response to an application, a call for applications or a call for proposals. My experience is that most often it's a 3 or 5 year proposal period. And so basically they usually give a lot of notice. So you usually have a couple months to prepare the proposal, but and they will set certain criteria of what they will cover, what they won't cover. They will specify how many hours, are equivalent to an average daily enrollment. They'll specify certain things that they will cover, not cover, and then you're expected to make that work and provide a proposal to show what language training you'll offer. In my case, we just offer it in my board because I'm in Ottawa and we have several Francophone providers nearby. We only offer English. Whether we offer, my board, we offer MLITSD funded courses and also LINK. But also some of our French school boards I know in our area also offer ESL. And I don't think they do, but anyway, so they may offer English as well. So we've got different pockets of funding available. But certainly they each have their own idiosyncrasies. I know some boards in Ontario, I think, do 25-hour days or weeks, not 24-hour days, 25-hour weeks as full-time under LINK, which may be different for ESL.
Thank you.
Full-time.
Next question. I have OCELT, but it's going stale with lack of use other than volunteering. Would it be prudent to take the CLB bootcamp again on my own? And is there a way to get around the wall that prevents those not already employed in a publicly funded program from gaining access to the PBLA course?
That's a question for the funders, I suppose, because they tell the Center for Canadian Language Benchmarks who has access to that language training. But it is, I understand that frustration because you want to keep yourself current and ready to step into the classroom. And what Marianne said about volunteering in our settlement in Guelph, there's a settlement agency that has many opportunities for volunteers to run conversation course circles, to have a variety of homework helpers, like all kinds of programming. They're always looking for volunteers. It doesn't pay the bills, but it grows your expertise and allows you to apply your knowledge and to keep it fresh.
I think also you can add to your professional hours by presenting at workshops. Again, if you have something, I think you can also count the hours that you have where you've attended either conferences or meetings. Say when TESL Ottawa does a Saturday presentation, you can claim those hours if you get audited by TESL Ontario. So there's ways that you can also augment your hours even if you're not working full-time or part-time.
What are some ways in which we can build more connections in the field?
Hey, maybe I'll try this one. So, I think the first way is to reach out to, one of the affiliates, right? I'm not sure who this person is, but there's 12 different sort of offshoots of TESL Ontario that one of them should be in your area or near your area. And it's a great place to start.
Right.
And often it's a wonderful way to network and build, sort of a friend group that will also then, have your back and maybe, send things your way that might be something that's worthwhile. And so I certainly found that in my own case with TESL Niagara, and a little shout out to them. But maybe you can find something similar in your area.
If you could give advice to your past self, what would you say?
I think I'll just say, if I could go back again, there's a lot of things I would do the exact same way, and I think I would say though that if you're not enjoying yourself, if it's starting to become a bit of a grind, or you feel like you're beginning to push against the rest of the institutional culture, that maybe it's time to move on. And certainly there's something to be said, you're building skills and pushing yourself when you try a new thing, right? And so I think I would have just pushed myself to make the leap a little sooner on some things, but other than that, I wouldn't change much.
Yeah, I agree. When I look back, it was never the career I had planned. I had always assumed once I had my PhD, I'd be in the university and teaching. And I think that life happened and I ended up here, and I got so many incredible opportunities through TESL Ontario when I was chair, and then at the Center for Canadian Language Benchmarks, that I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I absolutely love the years I have spent working with newcomers. It's been extremely rewarding. There is never a day that is dull. Although I wish I had a few sometimes, but it's always rewarding and exciting.
I agree. I think, everything happens for a reason. I had so many opportunities to meet people, work with people, learn from people in the field that it really was something that inspired me to continue doing it and to try different things and to take risks with certain courses or certain programs and things. So I think, going back to Jim's point about you have to love what you do. If you don't love what you do, it's never going to be easy work. But when you like what you do and you like the people you work with, you're ready to come to work every day and have a good day.
Yeah.
Last question. Where can we find information about organizations that provide free IELTS preparation classes? As a Link instructor, I get this question a lot.
We do.
At the Ottawa Catholic Board?
Yes, but
Free
I don't know if there's an actual registry somewhere. Again, I think
I don't think so either.
It's not something I think we can search in Hearts across the province or anything either. It might be useful maybe in Hearts if they came up with something, but
Yeah, I don't know.
and certainly the colleges and universities probably have things that
Yes, I would suggest just Googling IELTS preparation classes where you live and then see if any are offered free for newcomers through the school boards or any other not-for-profit. That's what I do because I get asked that question as well.
I also get asked often where to take IELTS training because I get a lot of people asking to be IELTS trainers. And part of it is, again, it's just interesting looking where the training is and who offers it and is it recognized, or not, and that kind of discussion that you have with people.
It might be a good idea to connect with your local IELTS examination like Algonquin delivers, and they would probably be able to point you in the right direction or make those connections for you.
Conestoga and Kitchener does IELTS testing. I know they hire trainers. So,
and someone's written in the chat that TDSB ESL program also offers free.
Mhm.
Thank you for that, Milka.
Oh, one more. Thank you for your responses. I've been volunteering with a settlement agency and conversation circles in the classroom while the teacher is on break and in an online and in-person tutoring capacity with students, CLB 2 to 5. A teacher gave me a sample binder, so I have some familiarity with PBLA, but I think if I do the boot camp again 5 years after my training, it will enhance my employability. Okay, so I think that's a follow-up from the previous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
sounds good.
yeah, good luck. It won't hurt, that's for sure.
Yep.
Okay, I think it's time to recap and highlights. So I'd like to thank you thank our panel for their participation. And I'd like to invite each panelist to share a final thought you'd like to highlight from our conversation today, something you believe is particularly important for our attendees to take away.
I think if you really want to teach, try and find that opportunity to do it. Continue to learn and to give back to the community as well. And you can do that, as you become more experienced training new people, mentoring new people. Try and do that. I think also just really helping people, because we're in the people business, working with newcomers often, and we're the first person they see each day. We may be the only English person they see every day. And we have an opportunity to impact people often in many ways we don't even know. So enjoy it. Don't give up.
Yeah, I agree. If teaching is your calling, don't be discouraged by not getting the position that you want right away. It is an incredibly satisfying field to be in. I can't think of any other field I would rather be in. So don't give up. Be positive. You will get the opportunity. Just keep finding ways to build your skills and experience. So when that opportunity comes up, you can show that you have what you need to be the person they hire.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think of a big takeaway, but I'm available, as I'm sure the others are, on social media. And so if you are looking to, extend this conversation, happy to do that. And yeah, good luck to everybody.
Yes. Good luck. Mhm.